he understands that he did something horrible and he feels horrible about it, but he also, he never pressures Lauren to forgive him. He acknowledges that she needs
Yeah.
time and space and that she's can't deal with it, and so he has to process his pain on his own. He's mature enough to realize that she owes him nothing, and he feels very bad about what he did.
Welcome to The Story Thinker, a Webtoons and Witcher podcast for superfans with scene-by-scene analysis. Featuring sharp co-hosts for a fuller picture, we dive deep into character psychology, relationships, and theories. We'd love it if you could like, subscribe, comment, and rate us on all podcast platforms and social media. For bonus content, you can support The Story Thinker on Patreon. Let's begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 59 of Purple Hyacinth, Painful Proximity. And we are here with Mossy, Iris, and Bundin.
Hi.
Hello. All right, very exciting. This is, by the way, one of my favorite episodes. I love
I love it.
Yeah, I love the emotional stuff that comes up. I love when people are deal with it, and this panel that I chose, which I'm already revealing, it's my favorite panel, probably one of my favorite panels in the whole comic.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, we'll talk about it when we get there.
Yeah.
All right, so the door is locked. The situation has been set up. Lauren and Kieran are ghostly figures. They're looking at each other. They're in the storage closet. There's plates and boxes and pallets and not much space, really. There's barely any room for them to move. So definitely very forced proximity, as we said. And Lauren tries to jiggle it. She says, as she said last time, there's no lock on this side of the door. It can't even be picked. And Kieran has, sat himself down on the pallet with some wine bottles behind him. He's like, the Carmine Camellia closes around 3 a.m. I'll kick the door open when there's no one around. 3 a.m. My first thought is oh man, that would be so tiring.
Oh yeah. No, and also just again, I love, as a reader, I love it, but imagining for them just the awkwardness of being trapped in that confined space when they haven't addressed really the issues between them, and just having all this tension and having nowhere to escape from it, and just sitting there for who knows how many hours. Just as a reader, I love it. It's delicious. But if I were in their shoes, man, would I hate that.
They no longer have the distractions of trying to listen to people and trying to dodge the workers or other people who are around, or gods. Now they're alone. Mm-hmm. They have nothing to occupy their attention,
exactly,
other than the other person in the room, and it brews more of that tension. And
exactly.
Yeah, and we see more of it obviously as we read.
For sure, yeah. All they can do is they have to wait. And they have to wait together, unfortunately, because they're trapped there and they can't do anything about it. And there's nothing else going on.
It's the best.
Yes.
And Lauren slides down and sits down also. And she says, I suppose that means we have to wait if we want to avoid more commotion, which, yes, I definitely do. Mm-hmm. And she's provided nobody needs something from the storage room before that. Which, is there even a space to hide, behind something?
It doesn't really
knock them out.
Yeah, it's a little hard to tell, since I don't think we see a great view of the full storage room. It doesn't look like there's anywhere to hide.
No, it looks very small too.
Yeah.
Not to be a tablecloth.
Exactly. You just hold up some wine bottles over the face, just blend in with the scenery.
I am a mannequin.
Exactly.
And she's taking off her mask at the same time, and Kieran does too. And he says, looks like our nighttime excursions are as chaotic as ever, which again, like you said, he's bringing back the band.
Yeah.
We're a unit.
Yeah.
We're a team.
I also just really like his face in that panel. I'm sorry, I just felt the need to say that.
Oh, valid. Yeah. He's a very handsome man. That feels like an understatement, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, and Lauren was I'm sure it would have gone fine if I hadn't crossed paths with you. Would it? I don't know. One or two people would have made a difference. At the end of the day, they were still stuck. Someone would have been in the room.
Right. Mm-hmm. Although I guess if we find out later, of course, that there's the issue with the bugs, but if Kieran hadn't shown up, presumably Lauren's bug would have kept. She could have stayed on the roof. Her bug would have kept working. So.
Yeah.
And he said, and you wouldn't have if my transmitter didn't die on me as soon as I arrived. I would gladly stayed on the rooftops. So he's like, getting back. She's like, yeah, me too. Sighs, and then she's like, wait. She's like, wait, what? And stands up. She's like, you planted a bug inside the room?
And he's like, he's so calm.
Yeah.
He's just like, duh.
Yeah.
Surveillance mission basics. And she's like, oh, so the signal interference. And then she's like, Blake. And
I love the empty speech bubble just to really signify how she's just like.
I thought it was a mistake at first.
Yeah. No, it looks it's like, why is there a speech bubble? But then it's like, oh, right, because it's just that's what her brain is doing.
Yeah. It is though, like, oh my god, I can't believe it was. Yeah. Like, what do you mean? And then she's like, this is all over the place. The agony and the frustration and the anger.
The anguish.
Yes, definitely.
The best. And she's like, of course I'm not doing
it. Iconic panel.
Absolutely, honestly. It's just, the like, shaky, blurred lines.
Yeah, it's so good.
Just her frustrated hands and her face, and I love it.
I think Soph used this on her Instagram story. I think it was before this one got published. I think it was announcing like they hit a milestone in terms of either subscribers or likes on Purple Hyacinth. It's like, we hit this much K like things. So like we saw this, we're like, what is she saying in the comic for this?
Oh, I love that. That's so fun.
It is.
But there's screenshots of that floating around somewhere.
No.
Probably. That's so fun. I'll have to look them up.
And she throws her backpack on the floor and she's like, and everything was going just fine. I accidentally skipped stuff. Where am I?
Oh.
Okay. The transmission was crystal clear. They just thump until, and then she is like, she's demonstrating this, she's brandishing it in Kieran's face until interference from your guys messed it up.
Kieran is just like,
I love how throughout this, Lauren is obviously very visibly pissed off and irritated, and Kieran is just like not picking up on any of that. He's just like, yeah, of course, planting a bug. Like, yeah, whatever. What do you mean? What do you? Yeah, and he's so calm while Lauren is just like absolutely losing it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and he's like, and that's why I had to get closer. And he's like, so we had the same idea.
And then you see that lovely panel of literally the same thing.
No, the vindication I felt because I went as soon as they showed like there were two and she put hers in one. And then the interference, I was like,
yeah.
The one is in that other one, and this is a comedy of errors. This could have been an email, but obviously they're not talking right now. Like that whole thing, it was so funny. I was like,
yes,
it's gonna be this, even though it's really blatant. It's gonna be this, and then it was, and I was like, yes, the most minimal, like easiest theory ever.
But still, it's I mean, like I said. I was not really theorizing at all during this because since I was still behind, I was just furiously scrolling that stuff as fast as I could.
Same.
But in retrospect, it seems maybe obvious. But even if I hadn't been binging, I don't know if at the time I would have necessarily thought of that because I'm not great at theorizing. So I feel like the fact that you correctly predicted it, like, who cares if it seems obvious in retrospect? It wasn't at the time, so still impressive.
Awesome. And Kieran's like, oh, he's just got his face in his hands and with regret. And Lauren's, looking up at him and just resigned. And she thinks to herself, what kind of sick joke is this? I can't believe I ended up in this situation. And then she thinks back to his deranged, totally out of control face. That is like, that's he lost it. I guess.
No, I really like the sort of the way Soph sort of handles the trauma, how it hasn't bothered Lauren up until then because they've been busy with eavesdropping in the meeting, and then, you know, trying to like run from the guards, and
now they're forced to think about it again.
Exactly. Yeah, there's nothing to distract them, and now because nothing to distract them, Lauren, there's nowhere to hide from the trauma, and there's nothing to distract from the trauma. So yeah, her brain goes back to that, and it's just, I think it's really well done.
Yeah, and she thinks back to when he was choking her, and she's like, I can still feel his grip, and she's gulping. Ah, that's so sad.
Yeah,
she like touches her throat, you know. It's why I like,
yeah.
Oh, she's like, I can't stay here and I can't leave. God damn it. And she like shakes her head because she's like, okay, let it affect me. I'm gonna like ignore it. And she's like, just stay away. And she looks at him with such hatred in her eyes.
Her eyes are so cold, which I mean is understandable because obviously she's still very angry at Kieran, especially right now. She's still processing her trauma and still dealing with that, and having just had a traumatic flashback. But yeah, the cold hatred in her eyes is, I feel like at this point it's somewhat shocking. So just like, whoa, that's, I don't know, sort of unexpected, I guess, after, you know, season 1 building up their playful banter, and then it's sort of just like, well, that's a change.
Yeah,
and you know, she like steps away from Kieran, trying to get as far away from him as possible. And this is my favorite.
Kieran's face.
Kieran looks at her, and then he, you know, he's just like a close up of his face, and it's so regretful.
I know, I was gonna say the same thing. My heart.
He knows exactly what she's feeling, and he's like, I have to face this, and I have no excuse. It's all on me. I did something horrible to, and I'm pretty sure at this point he does care about her. So he's like, I've done something horrible to someone I care about.
Definitely.
I proved that I am a monster in my head. Like all the self-loathing, all of it.
Yes.
His face, and then just turning away. So he's no face, not a person.
Oh, no
longer human type vibes.
Absolutely. No, and also just the way Soph conveys emotion through eyes. I feel like, when Lauren's saying just stay away, and her eyes look so cold and angry and with so much hatred, and then you know, 2 panels later, and you can see the pain and regret in Kieran's eyes, and it's just like, it's so good, but
yeah. And to me, when he turns away, it's an acknowledgement that, you know, her anger is justified, and that, you know, he probably would want to repair the relationship, but she's not ready for that at this moment.
And he knows, I have to respect her space, her boundaries.
Definitely.
It's like, it's the acceptance of the guilt and of the he did. It's, you know, it's like, it's, what's the word? I don't know. I was going to say specific words related to like acceptance, but like he accepted that burden on himself, like knowing, okay, I did it. And
definitely. It's
that, I think that's also the difference between like Kieran. Obviously, we all know he's done very bad things, but the key to not being a horrible person is being able to admit when you did something wrong and working to fix that.
Definitely. No, I think the whole way the issue of 43 is handled, in my opinion, is done very well, because like, yes, it's a horrible thing, but Kieran doesn't shy away from that. He never tries to downplay it. He never tries to be like, oh, whatever, it's okay. Like, he understands that he did something horrible, and he feels horrible about it, but he also, you know, he never pressures Lauren to forgive him. He acknowledges that she needs time and space, and that she's can't deal with it, and so he has to process his pain on his own. He's mature enough to realize that she owes him nothing, and he feels very bad about what he did to her.
It's beautiful. And now we have the Purple Hyacinth, episode 59, and we are back in the story. Thanks. And you know, it seems as though some time has passed. We see paintings and more palettes and papers on the floor, and they're just sitting there like really close to each other, as far away that they can be, but you know, just both sitting. And Kieran's still turned away. You know, he's definitely respecting her wishes, and not getting in her face.
Yeah.
Lauren's looking at him. She still has a really upset look on her face, and she thinks to herself, "Don't be stupid, Lauren. You have better things to do than panic." And she like also looks away from him.
Yeah.
And yeah, so she's dealing with it. It's like it's hard for her to be there with him.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's I mean, I trying to put myself in her shoes, I think understandable. Obviously, again, we as readers can tell that Kieran feels really bad about it and understands that he made a horrible mistake and that Lauren is very justifiably hurt and angry with him. But yeah, Lauren isn't in a place where she's able to acknowledge that right now because she's processing her own trauma. And yeah, being trapped in such a small space with a man who quite recently physically hurt you is understandably a hard thing to deal with.
Yeah.
But she's a very resilient person, so instead of
Definitely.
sitting there waiting in her like emotions, she knows like, okay, I have to stop thinking about it. And she takes her notebook out and she thinks, with all this I barely wrote anything down. Fleming, and she starts doing her detective work, which is
I feel like she's keeping her mind busy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's finding a way of distracting herself from her trauma. And but
eventually she has to ask Kieran something, and then they have to talk.
Exactly. But I think at the moment she's thinking, okay, she says to herself, better things to do than panic. So to both distract herself and also stay on task for the mission, just brings out the notebook to start jotting down the things she overheard.
Yeah, also like she does want to like make sure she captures all of it and doesn't like forget any details, so like recording it sooner than rather than later is also probably smart. But it's mainly a way to like distract herself from her current situation, get her mind focused on other things, and calm down.
Definitely. Yeah, and has the added bonus of being helpful for the mission to write it all down when it's fresh, so that later it's not like, oh, what was that specific thing they mentioned?
Yeah. And she says Fleming's mentioned February 14th as the date of their last delivery. There was one woman I hadn't heard about before, and she's smoking a cigar, so we all think about her cigar lady. Dark hair, about 5'8", in her 40s, no name. They have an underground hideout to store their smuggled weapons specifically, and she seemed to be in charge of it. And she's writing this all down. And the nitroglycerin. And she thinks back to what he said, how the Allendale tragedy would look like a tiny sparkler compared to what's to come. This is so much worse than I anticipated. And she's writing things down, and Kieran is clearly, he's kind of like peeking at her from the side of his eyes, because his focus is on her. He's really thinking about her and how she's been affected by him. And
I don't know if I get the impression that he's like focusing on her. I feel like he's looking like down at the floor, like he's not trying to acknowledge her in any
especially
way.
In the next panel we can see that he's still looking away, and so I feel like I'm sure his mind is on her and he's reflecting internally, but I feel like he's still, as he's reflecting internally and is, I'm sure, thinking about her, he's also of course trying to respect her wishes for space, and trying to avoid, of course he can't physically move further away from her, but trying to at least look away to sort of try and create more of an illusion, I guess, of distance.
Trying to make her as comfortable as they can be in this situation.
Exactly.
Like he's not really caring about his own thing. He's just making sure that he's making himself as small and as out of the way as possible.
Definitely.
And she's the first one to talk.
Actually. Yeah. Which I think makes sense. I think Kieran.
Yeah.
I think if Lauren hadn't said anything. I think since Kieran, obviously, again, we've started this, feels so bad for what happened and really wants to show that to Lauren and wants to respect any sort of boundaries or space she needs. I think it always would have had to be Lauren speaking first, because he never would have. He's learned now that all the previous snark and banter has been dropped, and he knows now that it's serious. And he's gonna respect her space the best that he can. And so she has to be the one to reach out and actually say something to break the silence.
Yeah, and she looks at him and then hesitantly says, do you have any idea who that black-haired woman could be? And he looks at her, and that look that he gives her, it's like, it's very guarded. And
and he's surprised too, I think, that she's talking to him.
No, I think, yeah, again, well, yeah, guarded and surprised, and I think
Yeah.
just sort of
Hesitant,
to me, he looks like he's not
cautious.
totally sure how to interact with her because,
Mhm.
yeah, since she's been justifiably angry at him and has, told him just stay away from me, and yeah, now he doesn't really know exactly with their relationship as it stands how to interact with her and how to communicate with her in a way which avoids
Yeah.
triggering her further.
Yeah. Yeah. And he says, no, I've never seen her before, and her name wasn't on the list. Might take a while to find her. And he's still not looking at her. And he says, the man with a scarred face should be easier to track, although I've never seen him before. And Lauren's face is like, well, I don't know how bad
I'm
at
gonna
that.
tell him.
Yeah. She looks a little annoyed at having to, keep talking to him, but obviously, I mean, so much of their partnership from the start and also from now after 43 is, the sense of the mission is more important than whatever
Yeah.
individual angry feelings they have towards each other.
Yeah.
You know what else that look of that she's giving him, where she's kind of like could be, is because he's not lying about not knowing anything about them, and I think it's annoying her that he's like, well, one, that he doesn't know them, but also that he's being sincere with her. It's kind of like, because she really doesn't want to like take him for his word, but she knows that his word is correct
Yeah.
right now.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then also she's like, again, like you guys said, having to keep talking to him to get like more information or like sharing things, because it's obvious that like they work better together. They have more of a chance of getting to know what's going on together and all that. So she's kind of like annoyed that she has to keep
Yeah, and she
interacting
needs
with him.
him for information.
Yeah, definitely. And they just learned the hard way that if they're if they don't communicate, they'll probably have similar ideas and just get in each other's way.
Exactly.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think also maybe the fact that, it's Tim's sake, like she's remembering her failure with him and what happened afterwards.
True.
So not pleasant for her. But she doesn't tell him all that. She just tells him he's the associate they were waiting for from overseas. What about the hideout? Any ideas? And she's a little uncomfortable, like she's touching her neck, she's kind of fidgeting. And he says, I was already trying to find where they were hiding the weapons, but no progress on that yet. And Lauren's like, we haven't made much progress at all. We've got no idea who the seventh apostle is. No way to get the leader. And tonight we only learned that they're planning to put Ardhalis to fire and blood. Oh, so depressing.
Yeah, she's struggling. I mean, obviously, of course, I feel like Lauren is dealing with multiple trauma. Obviously, the trauma from what Kieran did in 43, and then also the reference to the Allendale tragedy and how that will be, nothing compared to what's to come. And it's just the poor girl is dealing with a lot.
Yeah. And she says the others all believed they were stirring a civil revolution, but with all the nitroglycerin. And she's like worried, but Kieran cuts her off, which is like, he's trying to reassure her and comfort her.
Yeah.
Like, we know we have until February 14th. The apostle doesn't want to unleash the apocalypse upon us before that. That still gives us 2 months to defuse the bomb, which is a little ironic, but okay.
Right. But I think also what gets to me is the way he's trying to reassure her and, keep her from spiraling into panic, but he's still not looking at her.
He's still not facing her.
Yeah, he's still like, obviously he cares about her, and he's wanting to reassure her with, like, oh, we have until February 14th, we have 2 months. So, basically implying, like, don't like panic right now, we can figure this out, but also recognizing, his role in her trauma and still trying to respect her wishes and still looking away from her. And it's just like, I don't know, it makes me a little emotional. Like, oh, Kieran, he's trying hard.
Yeah. He's in just kind of like a rough position where it's like he's the one who really needs to prove himself again to be trustworthy and worthy of her, like, again, her trust, her respect. And he wants to, again, like you said, he wants to reassure her that like they can still fix this, while also trying to make sure that he's not encroaching on her space, making her feel uncomfortable. He's trying to be as least intrusive as possible.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Like you said earlier, trying to make himself as small as possible.
Yeah, he's doing the right things, And she thinks to herself, it's Allendale tragedy all over again. I'm one of the few who know a terrorist attack is about to go off. And she's like sinking her head into her hands. She's really emotional. Yet I'm still completely in the dark. 2 months. I suppose it's better than 1 hour. But nothing's, which is, I think she's thinking back, right, to when she heard that.
Yeah, to when she heard the lies.
Yeah, and of course, obviously we know she has a lot of guilt about that, thinking that she should have done something since she heard the lies, even though obviously she was a kid and didn't know what was going on. She just heard slightly suspicious lies. But yeah, definitely she's struggling a lot with trauma, and also I imagine, survivor's guilt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And she thinks, but nothing preventing them from moving up the date. So many people died, and she's thinking back to, the images of the fire and her running, and she thinks, how many more people will die if I don't make it on time? And Dylan's hat. Oh, she thinks to herself, oh, Dylan, oh, poor girl.
Yeah, she's going through a rough time. And the way then Kieran, after so long of not looking at her, he glances over at her briefly because he can tell that she's struggling, and then immediately looks away again because it feels like, he doesn't have any right to reassure her. Right now she's largely struggling with trauma for a different thing, but he's still a part of her trauma. And just the concern, the brief glance over, but then sort of like, no, I've lost the right to like comfort her, and just
I know, I think this episode is perfect. It's just so well done.
It's definitely one of the best episodes.
Yeah, it has a little bit of the lighthearted bits at the top, but then it really gets into like the emotional character beats, and like it's progressing the plot while also progressing the character interactions. We learn more about like their relationship, how Kieran feels, how Lauren feels, and it's also well done. His apology, I would say, is the best apology he could have possibly done.
Definitely, definitely, fully agree.
And then he opens his mouth and he wants to say something, and then he closes it again because he has a very hard time, like you said, thinking that he even has the right to say something, but he knows he has to. And he says, look, this might not be the best moment, but Lauren's looking up at him, and she has like so much despair in her eyes. Like she has this look of someone who's given up, or at least she doesn't give up, but right now she's feeling despondent.
Yeah, of course, feeling like it's
gorgeous.
Hopeless.
Her
she does.
Eyes are amazing.
The strands of hair falling on her face, like I wish when I was feeling despondent that looked so like artfully put together with like just a few strands falling in my face in like just the right way.
It's a beautiful panel.
Yeah, this panel there's a similar panel that's like maybe a bit later in like a few more panels where it's like her expression shifts slightly. I love both of these. I love how her eyes look, the expression, like two different expressions on her face, all of it. These are two of my favorite panels of this episode. Whether or not I'll pick them, I've yet to determine.
Fair. There's a lot of good ones to choose between.
Yeah, and Kieran, he stops speaking for a moment because it's hard for him too. It's hard for him to say things that are serious and to address a topic that's painful for them. And you see like the bitter set of his lips. It's just perfect. And he says, I know our deal is off, and the last thing you'd want to do is speak with me. And we get an image of like the window, because you get the sense that like they're not looking at each other. At least he's not looking at her. They're avoiding eye contact.
Definitely. And I think it's also interesting how with all of these panels of Kieran speaking, you don't see his eyes at all. You just see like nose down. It's focusing on what he's saying, and it feels again sort of like he's somewhat trying to hide himself from Lauren, to sort of respect her need for space from him.
And he says, I also know that you're probably scared for your coworkers and your friends. I wanted to tell you I will not get involved with them outside the office, nor put them in any danger, not even if I'm ordered to. Oh, that's the best thing he could have said.
Honestly,
this is the first thing he says. He doesn't talk about himself, but about her friends. And it means so much more than I'm sorry.
Yes, definitely. No, I think like when it's said, I think it really is like the best apology he could have given, because he's not trying to put her in a situation where she feels like obligated to forgive him. It's not in any way, like, oh, like, I'm sorry if what I did, like, I was like traumatized, I didn't let my own problems. It's nothing about that, because he knows that it's not appropriate to bring that up. It's just reassuring her, like, I swear I will, for that he knows that she can tell he's being sincere since she can detect lies. I will not hurt any of your friends or coworkers. Like, you don't, at least don't worry about that. Like, you have a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
That should not be one of the things you're worrying about, because I give you my word, and you can tell him telling the truth, that I will not hurt them even if I'm ordered to.
Yeah. It's like a practical action that he's doing. He's really offering something substantive.
Yeah, which I think is what Lauren needs. And I think he is able to recognize that, which is why it's such a good apology, because it's genuine and substantial rather than just empty words.
Yeah. And he says there's a lot at stake right now, but at least, and there you see like this panel where now you see the distance between them, right? It's it's depressing. He's, at least don't worry about that. Oh no. And that look that she gives him now, like you said, Bundin, is the same but different. It's like hopeful. It's like seeing him, it's looking at him, it's like, you would do this for me? Like, you
like
care
surprised and hopeful at the same time.
I don't know if I would describe it as hopeful personally. I would just be like, she's like shocked, and she's just kind of like taken aback by what he's saying in that moment. And again, she knows that he's being sincere about all of this, and I don't think she was expecting it from him. Because again, now that after everything's happened, he's sort of been built up in her mind as like being a lot more like he's not good. He's worse than he is, even though she does know him on some level at this point that that's not the case. But her knee-jerk reaction is to believe that, like, he's not, we're done, like, it's like there's nothing there anymore, but he's just being like, listen, I'm not gonna put people you love in danger. I will not, even if I'm ordered to. She knows how much he has to respect his orders, so like she knows that's a big deal.
Definitely, yeah. No, absolutely. And there's a lot of emotion in that gaze, instead of just the I think also partly like letting Kieran's words sink in, since again she can tell he's being genuine, and she knows, like he said, how much he needs to follow his orders, and realizing the sincerity of what he's saying, and also just like how big that is.
Well, now he's finally looking up and meeting her gaze, and it's like we get only his eyes, which is it focuses us, and it also just shows us like he's still hesitant to look at her, but he's finally like, okay, she's connecting with me. And now he looks away and he says, I thought about what happened, the prison tower. Oh, and then he looks down and he has such a bitter side of his lips. It's like, you were right. He's gripping his hands like,
yes,
tension. He says, I was the one who broke our agreement, and your anger was justified. The way I reacted wasn't. Wow.
Yeah, just
it's
honestly,
so
Kieran White giving us a lesson in how to apologize properly. Like, he's not putting any pressure on her. He literally says, I don't expect you to forgive me. He's not doing this because he wants or expects forgiveness. He's just genuinely acknowledging that he messed up, and he knows that, and he understands that she's angry, and he expects nothing from her. It's just like, it's so good.
The accountability.
Yes, the accountability. He's not even gonna say like, I'm sorry directly, because it's just he doesn't need to. It's like, it's I'm sorry feels sort of like a understatement for what he did, instead of just saying, yes, you were right, the way I reacted was not justified. And it's just, again, the accountability. We love to see it.
Great.
Master a lesson in how to properly apologize.
Amazing. And like you said, he says, I don't expect you to forgive me. And Lauren's kind of like perking up and listening, she's caught by what he's saying. And he said, nor am I asking you to. I just want you to know that I will not cause you more harm than I already did. He's acknowledging that he's done her wrong.
Yes, it's so good.
Him.
Honestly, just the angsty hurt comfort, his accountability, his acknowledgement, without like hiding behind excuses or anything, just straight up acknowledging that he knows he hurt her, and he is not expecting anything from her. He just needs her to know that he's not going to hurt her further.
Mm-hmm.
And she can tell
shit.
how sincere he's being. It's so good.
It's good shit.
It's so good. It's just, mwah. I feel like I do that too much, but this episode deserves it.
That's perfect. That's the exact reaction you should have.
And I will say, I did notice that he didn't specify what he did. He just says his reaction, because I think it's too painful for him to admit verbally, like, I choked you. I became the monster that you said
I wonder.
I was.
Yeah, I wonder if it's partly that, partly sort of his struggling to admit it to himself. I wonder if also it's again out of consideration for Lauren's feelings and not wanting to re-trigger her. Yeah, a mix of both, because also, it's clear from context what he means, and sort of directly saying like, oh, about the time I choked you might kind of be like, whoa, like insensitive and potentially, sort of trigger her more. And so I think it's a tactful way of broaching the subject in a way which doesn't trigger either of them, or at least
and he's also mentioning your anger. He's not mentioning the exact words she said to him.
Yes, definitely.
No, I think it's
Oh, I just was gonna say yes. I think a tactful way of broaching the subject.
I think his approach with that also, like, he doesn't need to like get into like what they know what it is, like there's no need to get back into it, because again, like, consideration for Lauren, but he don't need to get into too many details, like, to cause her any more like mental distress. Keeping it vague, because you know exactly what he's talking about. He doesn't need to say it.
For sure, yeah. They're both well aware of what specifically they're talking about.
So Kieran looks back at her and says, I sincerely mean it. And he has this very like vulnerable look on him. Like, ugh.
Yeah, and now he's facing her. He wasn't facing her before, I think.
Yes, yeah. You're right. Yeah, he was looking away from her when he was saying, I was the one who broke our agreement, your anger was justified, the way I reacted wasn't. And then he looks back at her when he says, I sincerely mean it. So just, I guess, to like hammer home his words and make sure she genuinely understands, like, yes, I know, and you know that I am being completely sincere right now.
Yeah. He said, there wasn't a single lie in there. And I hope you can hold on to that about your friend's safety at the precinct, if nothing else. And it's just so beautiful.
It really is. It's just, the emotions, the accountability, the angst on both sides, the hurt comfort aspect. It's just, it's so good.
So good.
Emotional porn for us.
I just want, exactly, I want to like inhale it. I'm like, yes, more of this.
That's so good. Like, it's one of the in terms of like apologies that I've seen in my media, one of my favorites. I would say it does all of the things that you should do in an apology, and like, he knows that that's all he can do right now to give her like even if it's like just about the thing about her friends, if nothing else, like, rest assured, I will not do anything to them. And then throwing in that last stuff just to like be like, I'm being sincere about this. You don't have to like take that. I don't expect anything from you.
Yeah.
At least just hold on to this. And I'm just
exactly.
Like, yes.
Absolutely. No, and again, the way he focuses not on, I hope someday you can forgive me or anything like that. Just, I hope you can, hold on to the fact that you don't have to worry about your friend's safety. Like, if nothing else, just don't worry about me hurting your friends, because I swear to you, I will not hurt them, and that is not something you should be worrying about. And so it's great the way he apologizes by taking accountability and sort of offering her a real source of comfort without expecting anything in return.
It's amazing. That's doing what he should be. And Lauren kind of takes a moment to take it in. She's looking away, and you see her reflecting, like she's thoughtful, she's pursing her lips a little bit, and she's watching Kieran, and she sees that he's the fact that, like, again, he's kind of shadowed again, he's in the dark, he's in a dark place mentally. He knows living with his guilt.
Oh, definitely. It's so and the way Lauren is looking over at him, then turns away, and just her own eyes are sort of like downcast, and it's just the subtle emotions and the way Soph draws eyes, I think just it's so good.
The eyes are so glowy in this episode as well. They just pop so much, which I think is it. Because most of this episode, the color palette is a lot of like darker, muted, like
the eyes aren't as glowy anymore.
Her hair is red, but it looks so like dark and but their eyes remain so bright.
And I think that's a great point because obviously, of course, it's nighttime, and it works so well to have these sort of dark, muted colors. Yeah, her hair looks, very dark red, sort of almost even like a reddish brown. It's so dark, and just having the eyes glow, it stands out so much. I think it's both like aesthetically beautiful, and I think also it's just really great for conveying the emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she doesn't respond. We kind of cut to the next scene, and she's still thinking about it. Like, she's letting it sink in. She's not immediately thinking. Yeah, she's taking her time. She's not sure if she's ready yet to address it and to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And Kieran doesn't
have time to think about it.
Yeah, which is good. She's she's not being pressured into it either, which is great.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have some space, and we then see it looks like some time has passed, and we see, hold on, if I get to it here, above the Carmine Camellia, and it's now 3 a.m. and boom, we have clack. Kieran kicks open the door, or someone kicks open the door, and they peer around the hallway, and they head off in separate directions, and she's like, "I'm off," and he says, "Me too, good night." And which I'm like, are they going to retrieve the devices from the closets?
I don't think they need to. That's not like they can be really traced back to them. Like,
right.
And also, I assume that they'll probably die after a bit because they probably have tiny little batteries in them.
Yeah.
So, like,
right. Probably. It's a good point.
I don't know. I wouldn't want anyone to know that they've been spying, but whatever.
I guess that's true. But
we can always go back and fix it at some point.
Yeah, and they're heading off, and you see like Kieran's face, and he's again like the guilt and the anguish is just written all over it.
Yeah.
And again, the glowy eyes from both of them. It's just it's so beautiful.
Yeah, and they said like the bare minimum. Like, they didn't ignore each other completely, but they did say the bare minimum. She's like, "See you."
Right.
Say, "See you."
Yeah.
It off, and now we see the sky outside, and now we're back at Lauren's house, and it looks like she's not on the porch. Sorry, we have Tristan on the porch in her room, and we have like our lovely murder board and boxes and papers all over, and we see Dylan, little baby Dylan, punching out from there. Is clearly, still obsessed. His hat is there, and we see the picture of Tim's sake and the driver, and Y59AGN. I always say that I'll memorize that license plate, but I don't.
Oh yeah.
And it's like November 13th, 17, November 26th, terrible car accident, Snapdragon, the brochure. And he thinks, and he's looking at all this, and this is the first time that we know that he's now aware that is investigating this. And he thinks to himself, "What is your angle, Lauren?" And that is the end. And this is a moment, because now we know, like, he's not just the uncle who's naive and ignorant. He knows.
I remember when I was reading for the first time, I was really suspicious of Tristan. I was like,
same.
Are you the leader?
No, I was thinking, I was like, I doubted that so much. I was like, whoa, Tristan, what's really going on? Like, and especially I feel like the way he's drawn this panel with, like, you can see one of his eyes, but for the other one, the glasses lens is like opaque and covers it. And I was like, whoa, like, I wasn't sure to take from this. It's like, are we supposed to think that he's a bad guy? Is he just concerned for Lauren's safety? I don't know. What's going on?
It's really fun reading this now, knowing what we know on a certain level, because it's like, okay, spoilers. I'm not gonna get too into it, but it's kind of like he knows like more about what she's investigating than she does, and then he also begins to obviously suspect her involvement with Loon and all that, and I appreciate that like they planted the seeds. It's like when you reread it, it's like, so like there's definitely precedent for him reacting in certain ways later down the line.
Definitely. No, I often, when I reread Purple Hyacinth, I haven't done that much rereading yet, but when I do, I'm often struck by how well it's sort of planned out and how things which seem either, things like this where like, oh, what's going on, or things which seem inconsequential later down the line, like, oh, wait a minute, you reread and you're like, oh, actually they hinted at this, way back then. It's always really cool seeing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that also a reason that it tripped us up was that he's not discussing his knowledge with Lauren. Lauren's not hiding her investigation in that sense. Like she's had her murder board is up there, but there's obviously information there that really she wouldn't have access to unless she was doing some serious digging. So the fact that he's not addressing this with her was very concerning for us. We're like, why is he not discussing this?
But one other thing I want to mention before we go is that like the music in this episode is also really good. Like I muted it, but I heard the song. I was like, oh, it's this song.
Yes. Honestly, all the music is beautiful. I mean, my personal favorite is always From the Start. I'm like a little bit obsessed with that piece to the point where I'm like, I'm trying to learn on piano, I'm trying to learn on viola. It's like my number one most played song on Spotify. But honestly, the entire Purple Hyacinth soundtrack is just so beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. That's so much. Soph is so talented.
Oh my god. Like the drawing, the writing, the music, and it was also F. Like I at first thought F was like, just the writer. Of course, that's impressive too. But then when F was posted little like comics or doodles on Instagram, I'm like, what do you mean you're also a really talented artist?
Yeah, it's amazing. Pretty
the speaking of F and Soph, the little comment at the end is like 7 minutes in heaven, PH edition.
Wait, what's 7 minutes in heaven? I really
it's a game that like teenagers would play where it's like you put two like teenagers in a closet and they could like do whatever for like 7 minutes. It's usually like kiss or like whatever.
Okay.
It's never played it myself.
Me either. I mean, also
a lot of teen movies.
Yeah, same. I've always partly wondered. I mean, I was like a very like shy teenager, so I was never into like partying except for like parties with my friends where we would just like hang around and like talk and play board games. But yeah, I always wondered like, am I just not in that like type of scene, or is it something which only happens in teen movies? Because I don't know anyone in real life who's ever actually done that.
Yeah, I grew up very religious, so we had definitely, schools, didn't talk to guys, so yeah, no 7 minutes and no closet for sure.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, okay, favorite panel, Kieran's art plan.
Oh my god, there's so many good ones to choose from.
I'm gonna go with the two Lauren panels where she's like looking and then she like, gets all like shocked. Let me pull up the second one because I really like the second one. This and then I'm also gonna cheat and include a third one because I need to include a Kieran one. I just really like this one where he's like,
I was gonna pick that one where
beautiful.
He's facing her.
I love that.
Again, I feel like the look of just like vulnerability and just trying to be as open and honest as possible, and like the regret. It's all multiple emotions here that's conveyed really well.
Yeah,
they both look so good in this episode too. So
honestly, they're both incredibly beautiful human beings. But yeah, for my favorite panel, it's technically two, but I think I chose the one right before Kieran apologizes, just the mix of the way he looks over at her and then looks back again before he starts to apologize. I just think there's nothing is being said, but there's volumes spoken in just his expression there.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Well, my favorite panel is this one.
It's a good one.
It's a solid one. There's a lot we're spoiled for choice in this episode.
Yeah, honestly, rereading it because it's been a while since I've read it at least twice, maybe 3 times, but it's been a while since I last read it, and so I was just reading it to remind myself just how good this episode is.
It's definitely one of my favorite ones as well. I have my like little groups of favorite ones in my mind. I should really like do a list in my brain. Maybe that's something I could do where I could like rank like some of my like favorite episodes or like say them. But yeah.
Definitely. No, definitely same. I feel like there's some really obvious ones, like especially sort of like mid season 3. We've gotten some really great Loki episodes.
136.
It's my absolute favorite episode.
It's so good. Yeah, both 135 and 136 were good. And of course, 125 is really good.
And 142 is
142 is amazing.
142.
And so, but as much as I love those recent ones, I absolutely love them. I feel like lately I feel like I should really go back and reread more and remind myself. There's some really, of course, all of it is good, but there's some really good ones. Earlier on, which sometimes forget about.
The ones where they're in Kieran's apartment for the first time chemically altered my brain.
Oh my god, so valid. So valid. And the way when like Kieran is like looming over her on the table to like fix to stitch her up, I was just like, okay. I
think I mentioned this before. But Baby Bundin back in 2012 was in another fandom, and there was a fan fiction that Baby Bundin loved.
Baby Bundin.
And it was a girl cop, and a guy who's a gangster. And they meet in when he's like just in jail for the night, and she's kind of like into him, and like they kind of flirt a bit, but it's like no. There's a gunfight. She gets shot in the shoulder, and he like picks her up and takes her to his apartment and stitches up her arm. So imagine older Bundin at the beginning of 2020 reading this. I threw my phone across the bed. I was like, no. I was like,
oh my god, yeah. I love that. That is great. I mean, it's honestly.
I want to make a clip out of just that, Bundin. Even though we're like past that episode, I'm just going to separate.
Yes, do it.
Honestly, clip whatever you want, Mindy. We have a lot of great clips in here. Whatever you want.
But no, that is really so good. Just character A getting injured and character B either like losing their shit or like helping patch them up. I mean, spoilers again, but factory arc, that certain moment. I don't think I literally threw my phone, but I like put my phone down. It was just like
112.
Oh yeah.
112. 112 is one of my favorite ones. Yeah. All my homies love 112.
It's so good. There's so many good moments. We are truly blessed with choice when it comes to this webtoon.
God, I need to reread more of it too. I might. Is that gonna be my project to like try and keep me up so I don't pass out at a bad hour?
Maybe we should do like an episode just screaming about Loki moments.
Oh, absolutely. I would. Yeah. I can scream about Loki all day, every day.
Oh, yeah.
It ain't much, but it's honest work.
Exactly. Yeah. If only I could get paid for screaming about Loki, that would just be like, what a great career that would be. Yep. I would be so rich because I can do it well and often.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm very happy. Like, we got to get back into the PH. Like, beautiful episode.
Yes, definitely.
So, and thank you so much.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, definitely.
My pleasure. I will see you all later.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you so much to my current patrons: Susie, Lily, Molly, Veronica, Emily, Jo Rochelle, Saucy Tacos, Ian Rose, Alexa, Misty, Joanne, Esther, Amwatiki People, Emily Jane, Kay, Lily, Beckett, Miranda, Christine, Sadie, Teresa, Mrs. Castaldo, Emma Pora, Ruby, and Natasha. Your support is truly appreciated.